Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It is Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And here in this series towards my Algol Uranus talisman that I'm intending to do this July 29th. So there would be good election when the moon will conjoin Uranus and Algol July 29th. Algol is not minima, and this is good for fifth lunar mention, for moon in Taurus. Please, not only moon in Taurus, add fifth lunar mention because the moon is conjoining Uranus and it is a hard aspect, and moon Urano-Algol that is very effective when you want to do kind of shielding from um, ideologies that misuse sexuality or technologies or electromagnetic, okay, if misuses. It's a decreasing one, so it's good for shielding, for protection, for purification, for purification of the economy of digital coins, from malpractice, okay, for being associated with malpractice, human trafficking, child trade, and so on. And so this is an election that I intend to go full force on. I already did an election, I believe, with the growing moon, and right now I'm receiving kind of like the things that are useful. So the first thing I talked about was deprogramming, and right now I would like to talk about what people call a succubus or Jezebel spirit, or spells for someone to um, fall sexually aroused. And first of all, I'm going to talk why is it done in satanic abuse or ritual abuse. And then I'm going to talk about healing shame, addressing the archetypes, and shielding ourselves and connecting with our sexuality as it is, not as others wants it to be. So first of all, the reasoning: why would anybody want to get another person sexually aroused? Um, and I will go, of course, with the example of Ronald Bernard because it's the most kind of juicy example. And he was ex-banker, which means he was top criminal. That was his job. That's the job of bankers at higher rank. And he tells that as a part of the satanic rituals, they would have rituals with girls that he found he liked it, and they were Thai girls, and then there were men beginning to touch the girls in sexual places for to arouse these girls, and then to dedicate the orgasms that the girls would have to Lucifer. Okay, now this is a very mild example of what these things are done. And there are also spells cast from away from far, and satanic ritual abuse survivors, which you could listen to in the Imagination podcast, um, and so on, and Anneke Lucas. And I want to just phrase, when I give the names, whether it's Bernard or Anneke Lucas or Imagination podcast, but these people are survivors, and they give the testimonials so that other people would not be hurt, or that other people that were hurt would understand, validate, and be able to come out. This is where it starts, this is where it ends, and nobody has any rights other than that. For that, the entire content of my podcast is exactly for this. And this is the way in which I reference that. Okay, so just to make it clear that, okay, with respect, these are people, they're not using that to be celebrities, they're not coming as celebrities. Some of them came from having no social contacts whatsoever online to be visible, just so that they can speak up. And so it's important to understand, respect these people's lifestyle, on whichever source you hear them, including, yes, my own. And now, when we talk about the casting spells, Of course, when the person is tortured, then they are more susceptible to the less physical. Okay, the body tends to dissociate, the person tends to dissociate from the body, and the experiential level of the body tend to, due to unhealthy circumstances, you can also reach it with healthy circumstances, be more dissociated and be more susceptible to the type of programming that is done from afar. We are at the age of Aquarius. If you find this topic of not physical difficult, I want you to begin to understand that the most material occupations, whether it's the bankers, the trust funds, the investors, the people that run your money, your possessions, okay, they do these rituals. If you don't know what they do, you don't have proper tools to invest your money, to understand money, to save money for your children, to get why is this inflation happening all the time, why these wars happening all the time, why nothing that they do to take responsibility yields, why is this financial crisis every now and then. You just like, oh, it's the astrology. No, it's not just the astrology. Astrology means change that's happening. Okay? But when your economy is running on child trafficking and you don't understand, how come some people just look for to get hurt? I hear that. I am half Dutch. People sometimes think like that and think they're very smart, which is the extra topping on the cake. But again, if you do not understand the ontological unit called human being, or nature, and you think it's only physical or spirit is somewhere out there not connecting with the physical, it cannot affect the physical through spirit, you are not equipped for Age of Aquarius without technologies that exist decades that read thoughts, because it's electric pulses, right? And they read thoughts and they affect dreams, and they derive from the egregore. And so you never tended to these facets, so it makes it more susceptible for such MK Ultra uses. In 7th October Israel, I can testify because I live around, there were paintings on the walls, MK Ultra South or Ultra South, and indeed villages upon villages were hearing, they began to hear like comments that coming from Gaza. So you understand it's something global. It's not that Gazan people are giving them comments, but they never experienced that. And because they never had association with the spirit world, then they weren't given diagnosis. Because if you are disturbed for what happens to you, you either give diagnosis or you go to some shaman and healer that heals you, or you end up in satanic ritual abuse, as happened to people like yes, I believe Teal Swan. And you say, oh, Teal Swan, but what she's doing, but what is, yes, but it began with her growing in a Mormon cult and having a double life. If you listen to a story, and it doesn't look like that because she looks like a model and she looks like a functioning human being. Good morning. And so you have to understand that all of these things are phenomena that happen, and if something like this happened to you, think, oh, maybe that, 90% something is involved with that to some level, to some degree. Okay, because these cults, the secret societies affect our economy, then they affect the heads of every organization, and it comes out when you want to open a business, even the crime organization that asks you for protection, okay, even they have to, at higher ranks, be affiliated with these secret societies. This is why when people want to get away from the cult, they go through extreme torture to get away from the cult, and they have to affiliate with criminal organizations because they can't just get a job because the job is owned by the cult. There's academia, army, public service, but also a lot of the high-tech industry. In any place you go to work with, if you want to make something of yourself and you're the type of entrepreneur spirit, then you see that happen. You see how it limits. This is why we have, yes, sorry to put on the spot Elon Musk is great business person and patent person, also survivor of these death camps, and had to be perpetrator, of course. But if you see Teslas Okay, if you go to Amsterdam, you see the Teslas. I call it they breastfeed from the veins of the gemeente. Okay, they tied like junkie to the gemeente, but Elon Musk has a solar battery. He can do fully solar car, and we have Lightyear 1, which already did that in Netherlands, in Eindhoven. Okay, I don't know, and of course they also have to be filled with coal, but it stops. And everything he wants to do, he did a car that is protective from shooting. Excellent. If somebody runs away from violence, runs away from this, and you know what's good about Elon Musk? He makes his car relatively affordable. It's not Ford affordable, but if you are able to buy a car when you are safe, then you can probably get a Tesla. And so, yeah, you have to also appreciate. But when they try to market this in Israel, the police says stop. We cannot approve for people to be in safe cars. Okay? But if a person runs from domestic violence, that would be the best for them, because then they can sleep in some parking lot or sleep there, and they are bulletproof, and they can run off, hit with the car, and is safer than most of the dog solutions that they sacrifice and don't give housing to people until they give the dogs. But they don't give housing to people, and you have not only women, also men. And with the COVID, we had a lot of domestic violence and violence on the rise. Now back to the topic, and this thing happened because the cult says, no, we don't continue for this. This can get people out of the cult. Now, how do you stop a situation where a person, if you feel targeted, if it happened to you that some Succubus or Jezebel spirit or sexual arousal that you feel that is strange, coming from nowhere, and you don't know for what it wants, okay? And so, because what the attempt is to take your sexual energy, because it's energy, and to dedicate it, to sacrifice it, or to do stuff with it, or to enrich certain creative forces with your creative force, because you are not Luciferian, then you have sexual energy, because it drains people. Okay, these practices, they drain people. They don't make a person feel more alive. The many celebrities we see and so on that we have good energy, is because rituals, and then they let like entities enter the body, and they act on these entities, but this damages the sovereignty. Okay, and this is also when you're doing astrological magic. It's important to remember that you're a sovereign being. Caitlin Koppel talks a lot about sovereignty when you're doing astrological magic, and this is important. Okay, what's in the energy? So you can work with other energies, no problem, but the intention is yours. Now, when these things happen, the first thing that you need to tend to free yourself and become autonomous and sovereign with your sexuality is removing sexual shame. Now, it's not something that's done at once. But removing sexual shame, because what you're targeted, if even tending to your sexuality is a taboo, then imagine what would it be to get you sexually aroused from a picture of a child, or from rape, or from molestation, or from violent sex. Okay? In industrial pornography, not talking about people who are doing sex positive or this or that, then you would see that they would go with the violence, so much so, not only is it torture for all the participants, but they would go with the violence so much so that people could not have erection after watching pornography, because they would come from dopamine rather than the cocktail of serotonin, vasopressin, the oxytocin is the best, and so but sometimes they would induce also for the oxytocin for the bonding and so on, especially if they try to trauma bond. And so this is where they would get this cocktail in your brain associated with things that are not something that would stir up an orgasm in you. And the first thing to do is to remove for the sexual shame. Because if you feel ashamed, you don't have place to move. You keep in that, it's in fact, this is what they want. Especially if you're particularly Christian or particularly religious, then you cannot talk about sexuality. Sex outside of marriage is taboo. So they trap you. That is very easy. Even if you only had a simple orgasm, nothing harmful, then you already feel ashamed because you're outside of marriage. Maybe you masturbated, maybe you excreted semen. Like for Judaism, it's like, oh my God, you cannot excrete semen, and so on and so forth. And they got you ashamed of something that you have no reason to be ashamed of. The minute you tend to it and begin to address sexual shame, then you begin to gain sovereignty of your sexuality. And the sexual shame is not about acting out certain sexualities that hurt others. It's not about acting out. It's to remove the shame so that you can become sexual sovereign again. And very likely, if you're not like born into these death camps, or child survivor or child abuse survivor, then the path is a bit easier. If you are, then the intention has to be set here for that you don't have actual sexual relationship, and very likely you're not tending to, or for some people it can manifest as that, not to have sexual relations with others until you feel sexually sovereign. And this is very important. The brain is flexible, so nervous system takes at least 6 months to learn something new. It's a long process, but that can be an opening of a way into sovereignty. And then into sexual shame, by yourself, just understanding that there's nothing to be ashamed, that you're not to blame for what happens to you. You also don't want to go to a place where you commit crimes or offenses or pass the offense on, which is sometimes where they try to hide with that. That is already an opening for the next thing. The second thing is to be present with your body during self-pleasure masturbation. Okay? You must understand that even if you grow up and it says like, don't excrete semen or don't masturbate and don't this, and I'm not here to judge. There's certain people that have good relationships and good sex life and they don't have sex outside of having sex with each other, and they're okay with this. I'm not here to judge your tradition. But if such thing happens where you targeted, it's very important for you to be present with your body, but not to abstain from sex when you're not supposed to abstain from sex, which means that it's not about repressing this energy even more, but to be present with your body and to begin to take ownership of your own orgasm. And this is, again, it's a nervous system targeting. So we're talking about 6 months where the nervous system learns. So the first thing that you can do, if they sacrifice your sexual energy, your orgasm, but with all the things that come with it, to certain deities, then what you do is you begin to direct your sexual energy. And good morning, Tantra, okay? So this is a gate for you to be even more sexual sovereign than you were before. You begin to say, I set intention for example, I set intention for this sexual energy to manifest abolishing of satanic abuse. For when the moon is decreasing, then anybody that will try to abuse you or sacrifice for Lucifer, you take your energy and you take out the energy of the people that came to you, and you say dedicated for abolishing satanic abuse, for willing consent, if moon growing, for willing consent. And you can manifest what you want in life. This is called sex magic. So instead of, you set direction, where you directed this energy. And then and then in your daily life, you begin to set, for whenever I'm sexual, okay, we can set it now, whenever I'm sexual, I dedicate it to, when I'm increasing, to increase my well-being, my wealth, healing across the world, sovereignty, autonomy, will and consent, healthy connection, or whenever moon decreasing, to abolish anything that stands in the way of those. Okay, whether it's satanic abuse or indigenous abuse, where they derived it from indigenous societies. Okay, the Abrahamic religions did not invent anything. They did copy paste from all the cultures, and they call this religion Judaism, religion Islam, religion Christianity. Just arranged it so. They're supposed to abolish human sacrifice. This is the story of Abraham and Yitzchak, where the God says, I don't need, but first he contacts with Abraham and said, please take your only son and sacrifice to me. So Abraham knows he's talking to a God. That was what he's used to do. Oh, the God is talking to me. And then God says, stop with this human sacrifice. Stop. I don't need you to sacrifice your child for me. And this is the story of Abraham and Yitzchak. Okay? But he says, I don't need that. And then Abraham says, but an animal. I don't need that. But if you have to do it, please eat from the animal. Maybe one time, not eat from the animal. And you put it to the soil, so it nourishes the soil. But eat from the animal. I don't need that. You need that. Eat from the animal. So what about body mutilation? And the God says, I don't need that. Read the Bible. But Abraham insists, and so the God agrees on a little piece from the top of the penis, where you could get along with, and it's easier to clean. But it's not so simple to get along with, because it's basically the equivalent of the clitoris for the penises, and is actually making sex way more joyous to make for people, but also is how you're supposed to have sex, which is something that is covering up. It's not okay. It's not supposed to be painful even if you don't have it, but then you already have to experience tantra. But it's basically not something you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to do that. God was right. You're not supposed to do any of that for God. Okay, let's just agree with God for what He said to the Bible. Okay, I don't need that. You need that. Okay, so we have good basis, and all the rabbinical people, they agree with this, but they still think that the people need that. And all the rabbinical people, I'm not in disagreement with any of the rabbinical people at the higher ranks. They understand, they agree with that, but what they are afraid is that humanity will have difficulty to process that. Even now, 2,000 years after. But there's no Jewish rabbinical person who would think that the Brit Milah, okay, the circumcision, is actually a Judaist, respectful of honoring of God. No, it's a pagan thing that they preserved. So does the word Baal, which basically means the god of Baal, and is the Hebrew word for a husband. So a little more on the dumbfuckery that's going on in the world. No human sacrifice is needed for Christ consciousness, or for God, or for the love or cosmic energy or whatnot. Now when we're talking about tending to removing shame, we're talking about being with yourself, with your physical body. We talk about setting intention of what you want, where do you want the energy to go. And say, ask for access for my energy, and then you can say, ask for to limit access, okay, for anybody who would misuse it. Okay. Now sometimes you are called to practice this tantra. And if you're called, okay, to practice this tantra, maybe you have Mars or Venus in the 9th house, and so or the ruler of the 5th in the 9th, then it means sometimes that your sexuality is meant to be a part of your spiritual practice, and therefore you will see that these practices, when you begin to practice something that reminds of Tantra, notice it was practiced anciently, because back then also people were molesting children, and then they were putting this into the Tantra, and so you see sexual abstinence, which nearly nobody can preserve, and it's not meant for a person to preserve unless they are a monk, okay? Associated with Chinamastra, which storm goddess and gold and the power of lightning and so on. But you don't have to abstain from sex, nor do you have to conserve semen. It's actually, if you have high sexual energies, you can make experiments with this. So sometimes it can mitigate because you are tending to it and you are more in the joy process and you're receiving. That's the role of Tantra, that you're in your sensual experience, not just sexual, sensual experience, so that you are enjoying your senses and you don't feel this constant hunger. That's what Tantra is essentially. That's the practice. And so you regain control by enjoying and being immersive of the sensory experience, instead of running away from it. I guess I understand that the Chinamastra practices, or the sexual abstinence practices, are more for like later age. And so when you do these practices, then you begin to regain sexual sovereignty, okay? And then it's time also for you to learn how to shield yourself from this type of attacks, and it's about self-value and self-love, okay? And you might go through a certain phase, especially if you have Pluto hard aspects to Neptune, to Venus, Venus hard aspects to Neptune, to Pluto, then you might be going through an entire death and rebirth process. But to have access to your sexual energy, to be able to enjoy an orgasm, to be able to move, to be able to arouse yourself, to be able to be sovereign, and so on. So to love yourself when you're sexual, and to love yourself when you're not able to be sexual. It can, if you have penis, it can be with erectile, what you think is erectile dysfunction is actually your penis functioning, and your body's not working against you, it's not betraying you, okay? And that is important for you to understand. For these things, they can happen either from attunement, if you have sex with another person and they are not ready. So you have attunement, so you feel like, oh, it's not hard. Of course, they are not ready. It's hard when it's when it's hard, you know. It's hard when it's there, but it doesn't mean, you know, hard penis doesn't mean that you can have sex. Soft penis doesn't mean that it's dysfunctional. But it can also happen because if you were taught, let's say you want to have sex with a woman, okay, and you were taught women are like this, women are like that, women are slaves, women are this, women are that, da, 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 da. What do you want? Who do you want to stand up for you? Not your penis. Not your maybe when you are young, when the hormones are running, but not your penis. It's not the age. It's the cult. Decaltify your penis, decaltify your vagina, and so on. So I think I gave you kind of enough practices that you can begin to tend to of when it comes to sexuality, and it's appropriate to use the return to sender if somebody known and unknown, never have specific phase. Okay, return to sender known and unknown if you're being violated, because sometimes when you don't agree to the coercion of kind of like the carrot, then they would try to use the stick. And this is where you shield the fuck out of your energy. Some people will use garlic, okay? The garlic under your bed, and garlic is very transformative, okay? It's almost psychedelic the way it can be transformative of your life. You can grow garlic, you can put a clove of garlic, or you can bait with garlic. It's not the best scent, but shielding your energy, set your intention to shield your energy from that dumb fuckery, so you can again return to your senses, and it's appropriate to do for return to sender known and unknown, and this is why I do it not specific. So if they shape shifted into a person, you don't target the person they shape shifted that maybe not even in control of the body. And I know that feminists would say, but okay, learn spirit and matter, learn to protect yourself for what you need. Okay, it's okay to be feminist. I'm also a woman, but if you resist of the practices that would support sexual well-being and will and consent, then you're satanic. Okay, we're looking not for to put people in jail experiment. We're looking for to have good sexual health, sovereignty, good life together, and good life individually. And that is that is what should guide us when we think through these problems and these conflicts. Even I still have this stigmatic thing of when I would say abolish, when I would use Hebrew has genders, if I forget to say boys when I talk about abolishing sex trafficking. So it's not, and this is okay, stupidity, but we have to train our brain to think correctly. It's true that satanic and the Vatican are patriarchal, but it's also true that they hurt boys as much as they hurt girls, and they also hurt men as well. So if what we want is to have good life, we're not looking to change who suppresses who. We also see it politically. Okay, it's not about now we suppress you, now we suppress you. Okay, fine. You're not going anywhere. Definitely not to the age of Aquarius. But to abolish slavery, abolish oppression, abolish this is into inclusivity, equity, and sovereignty. So those are pretty much the practices that you can do with no objects, no anything that you need. Remember, if something affected your sexual energy, it takes at least 6 months of practice to change for your nervous system, because the sexual energy goes through the electrics of the brain and the thoughts, and this is taking time. Now, when you are present with yourself in your body, this is the thing I forgot to talk about. If you have sexual fantasies that are violent or hurtful to you or to others, then, and I'm not talking about kink and kink shaming people in kinky society. Okay, you practice SSC for the way that you see fit. I'm talking about people that they do not want this, that are abused as children or abused as adults, and do not want this, and it's not the nature of the sexuality. First of all, is for you to begin to give more love to your body, to touch yourself more tenderly, to feel the presence of your body, to incorporate, okay, to hug yourself, to incorporate being receptive to pleasure and love. For some, would be appropriate to work with Venus. And here is very important to incorporate pleasure. Why? Because if the pain part was what you're used to, then yes, you want to bring for pleasure part. Don't worry, if you have healthy, kinky fantasies, nobody is going to take them away from you. Okay, this is not it's not for to change your sexuality. It's for to strip off what is not your essential sexual desire, and what was put on you for satanic ritual, for to strip off. And how do you do it? You bring love. You bring love to your spirit. You bring love to your self-value. You're not to blame for what happened to you. You are a divine being deserving of love. Okay, and for the actual practice is also the tantra practice, that you bring love to your body. And again, there's also the element of purging. Okay, for some of you might be fear to orgasm, or all these things that come about. Or if you orgasm, there can be purging of abuse you went through, especially also if you're not like satanic ritual abuse, sexual abuse survivor, or violence survivor. Sometimes even the violence was not about sexual. It's a purging of your entire psyche. It's the root chakra, it's the relational chakra, and you want to be tender with yourself, and you want to bring in for the pleasure in a way that is slow and loving with yourself. And a part of this practice is to love yourself when you're sexual, or to love yourself when you're not sexual, to love yourself when you orgasm, for when you cannot orgasm. Okay, it's just like with fertility, to love yourself if you're able to be mom or dad, or to love yourself if you're not able to be mom or dad. And this is a practice of fertility, whether it will end up as babies or it end up as creative projects, is practice of fertility. And this is a true fertility practice, okay? It's not to sacrifice babies. It's not to have rape and murder. It's not to have all these things, but to the fertility goddess, okay? Because Lucifer is associated with Venus and associated with Mercury, and Mercury's children, and Venus is a fertility goddess, goddess of war, and it's true. But it's archaic to make human sacrifice to these gods. And now let's talk about the archetype, or the true archetypes. Now we have Lilith in Libra, and I already said that Lucifer associated with Venus, associated with Mercury. Even when you think about the gods, Lucifer, Satan, okay, or Saturn. So let's go one by one. They're all associated with astrological planets. Black Moon Lilith is simply the goddess that would not be subdued. What was the story of Lucifer? What did he say? He said, "I'd rather reign in hell than serve in heaven." Why? Because he didn't want to be slave. But the way we are told it by religion is either this or that. But what actually Lucifer teaching? If life presents you with ultimatum, there's you striking a third option. It's not either be abusive, hurtful, make humanity suffer, or be pure as God. You're human. And so when you understand that this light bringing is both for your ability to be honest with the essence of your desire, what I actually desire, remove shame of what you actually desire, explore what is the nature of your desires, and liberate yourself. You understand it doesn't have to go to the polarity of rape, murder, curse, manipulate, It doesn't have to go through this extreme. In fact, this extreme would get you away from enlightenment to deprogram the shame of what supposedly was the church. There's nothing to do with Christ consciousness. The Lord, I ain't worthy, but the Lord still, you are worthy. And you're worthy of love. Okay? And this abuse can go so much as people try to convince others until they get the other person to go out of their character. And it would only go with people who really are not raised outside of shame. And then horrible practices happen. So Lucifer is nothing but what do I really desire here? First of all, remove all the moral standards of society. What do I want? That's Lucifer. What do I want? Then you can think about how do I come to achieve it, and usually what you actually want. How do you want attention? Do you want to be loved? To be seen? Okay, you want to be in power in the situations. You might feel, I want power all over the world. Very likely you don't. Very likely what you want is to have peaceful life, but you believe you need to have power all over the world for you to have peaceful life. It's the other way around. But because if you are abused, then you feel so powerless that you have to control for all the world. This is also why they do it, because they train the people who will be decision makers on the jail experiment globally. That's why they do it. These are leaders. These are business people. That's the decision. That's the Soros and the Schwabs and so on. But it's not the truth. You don't believe me. Go with yourself. Do the practice of stripping off of what society thinks, what other things, what your parents think, what these things, and go with the inner. What do I want? Why do I desire this? That's good Luciferian practice for you. You see, no human sacrifice is needed. And you don't need to make deals with Satan. This is invention of the people who malpractice. And they inverted not only the church, but also the planets. Saturn is dedication. When you want, why do you brush your teeth hopefully every day, maybe even twice a day? Because teeth are associated with Saturn and you take care of them every day. You dedicate yourself to eat well, to do good for your teeth, and your teeth do good for you. To connect with your ancestors is also good teeth practice for you. And then you have good, healthy teeth. Nothing satanic about this. Will you take rest in between effort? This is Saturn. You dedicate yourself to projects so you can go through with it. Okay, I have Saturn in the 9th house. It created delay for when I would start degree because I would run into satanic abuse in my degree. And I would need to tend to that, so I would need to be at least after Saturn return. And so, to have a first degree, but then a second degree, and to go through the 5 years of academic studies, this is Saturn. It's dedication to finish this project. Nothing satanic about this. You write a book from start to end, this is Saturn. The dedication. This is why Mars excelled in Saturn's sign. Because Mars is action and Saturn is achievement. So repetitive action across time gets you achievement. If you go in the right direction, you do the right action and you rest enough. Okay, so now that we dismantled for what is Satan, you don't have to sacrifice anything to Satan. You have to put dedication in. If you can't find what your dedication, go with Lucifer. Go with what the essence of your desire. So you get connected with your desire every day. That is where the dedication and passion comes from. So you're not running on debt, but you're running on love. Your energy for to do achievement. Okay, it takes time to go. You have to set intention. I set intention to find what the essence of my desire is and to succeed with happiness and to have passion and to find where my passion, what the patterns of my passion. That was at least 5 years ago. At least 5 years ago when I'm recording this. So I'll have to be willing to experiment and to dedicate and so on. Lilith, okay, she didn't want to be subdued. Done with that. That's the story. She didn't want to get into toxic relations. That's it. That's Lilith for you. End of story. End of story. That's the essence of Lilith. A free woman. Free within relation, would rather be with no relation than to be in relation where it's not healthy, not for her, not for the partner. That's it. Removed from the Bible. Oh my God. What a demon. Oh no. Free woman. What happened when women were actually free? More free. Where they had bank account, where they had ability to work, where they had the ability to have their own house. Men began to suddenly be attracted to them because suddenly there was an attractive human being in the room. But in the beginning you saw a beautiful girl, then you molested her, then she's no longer beautiful. She suffers because of you. And then you say men corrupt women, so we have to have a virgin. No, women need to be free. Then even if they had sex, they had this, they had that, but they can care for their lives and they can have sovereignty and they can have their well-being and their financial sovereignty. Then now they're attractive. Now you have a conversation with someone that can speak with you. Now you have a friend. Now you have somebody that does something in their life that's a bit maybe different from you, and you can exchange experiences and you meet like another land every day when you meet. And now you have actual, you live longer. your children happier. Sexuality better. It's a bit of a challenge. Yes, sometimes they like this, sometimes they like that. It requires you to have an ego death, but the result way better. And also for women, that they had to be so. It's not just for men. Yes, you cannot just, you had a baby, okay, you had a baby. It doesn't mean that you have to marry this person. But you need to have your own sovereignty. You need to have just more progress to go, okay? You've been sexual with this person, okay, it doesn't mean that they can provide relationship. Maybe they thought they can, and now they have a trauma that they have to tend to, and so on. This also, women had to learn to be sovereign in order to be able to have connection. And the last but not least, we have Algol, the head of Satan, the power of 3. And I was shocked when I saw people using Algol signification or Chinamastra significations in political assassination death threats. But apparently they do, because for I was lucky enough to learn Algol the correct way. The story was she was very beautiful young maiden, and she got raped, and no one believed her because they thought she got raped by Poseidon, by a person of high rank, and his bestie or romantic partner, Pallas Athena, did not believe that this was rape. She thought, oh, the young maiden, she came to seduce, and she's even more beautiful than Pallas Athena, and she came to seduce, very likely she's, yes, demonic, and she was, her head was turned into snakes, and then her head was cut off. But this head was a talisman that would turn men into stone and was used to save Andromeda, which some believe is Medusa transformed from kidnapping and torturing. Okay? Again, we see a kind of myth that wouldn't let a woman be. A young maiden, a woman be. Why? Because in history we did not have free women. So if you don't have free women, you're not used to seeing women attractive. Okay? For the most part, even if women get a bit older than this, and maybe she doesn't have, I don't know, baby skin, but she has other things to offer. She's have developed her sexuality and have developed her mind and deeper depth of connection, okay? So it's the other things that make her attractive. But when women not free, that they don't get that. And then you were like, oh, well, what are the young girls? What are the babies that look even like, well, maybe the vagina not so developed, but they are attractive. They still have life energy. That you haven't finished for the life energy with your satanic cults or indigenous abuse in your indigenous ways. Just like free childhood, not to have sex with children, was supposed to be obvious, but apparently you still have to emphasize this to people. And so Algol is actually shielding from all of this dumbfuckery. So she's not the head of Satan. And when you use Algol, or when you make elections with something on Algol, you think, oh, this is a well talisman. It's a well talisman if you do not practice human sacrifice, rape, and so on and so forth. This is why I'm a bit concerned about the digital coins with Algol placements, and I had another video about that. So one of the things I'm looking at and quite concerned is when X launched X.com for the X site, okay, after Elon bought Twitter, he did it on the Urano Algol. I don't remember if Algol was minima or not, but immediately I had to say as astrologer that you have to do out with this freedom of speech not reach. And that was some maybe misunderstood as trying to play on the fears. No, I'm not trying to play on the fears of anyone. It's just like Algol is about freedom of speech and reach and believed. Okay, but on the other hand, you do see that we have podcasts like the Imagination Podcast as satanic ritual abuse survivors. Okay, the release of Assange. There's the release of Assange happened before that. That are still, on X, on BitChutes. So that's also something. Whereas Joe Biden was a part of the MK Ultra. What is the gathering that they have to make decisions, and there's CIA documents of that. You can go to Imagination Podcast to see that for yourself. This also means that he's very likely a survivor of satanic abuse, okay, and had to perpetrate that and so on, couldn't get out of the code. So this is not shaming or judging, just like so that you'll know what's going on. And this is something that people should be aware of. If you are in the cult, if you're doing business, if you're Elon Musk watching this, I don't know, then this is important to work for correctly with Algol and to ask the correct steps. This is the shielder from all of this satanic stuff, and it's no wonder that when I'm doing this talisman with the Urano Algol, I'm receiving all of this stuff about how it is related to satanic abuse and what was the misuse of Algol. It's meant not to work, because when it comes to those who practice the ritual and satanic abuse, everybody is expendable. Those who practice expendable children, practice expendable people, and expendable leaders. Leaders is also business people, is also singers, musicians, artists, doctors, okay, everybody that would become a celebrity for what it does. Feynman was physicists, of course, and he died of cancer. Well, he knew very well that a cure for cancer existed in his days. He knew that, but this is how the cult works. Okay, actually, when he was kind of like protective talisman for me in academia, and I didn't know that. I was just drawn to Feynman. I discovered that there was cure to cancer, and even both from pharmaceuticals and non-pharmaceuticals. There were. I was teaching a doctor German, and she had a colleague that was doing research on cure for cancer, and they found cure for terminal cancer, bringing people to remission, okay, withdrawal of the symptoms, but also for the ailment. And suddenly, you would think that here comes the Nobel Prize, because none of these thousands of researchers knows about what was, because it's not documented. And so you would think you would get, here comes the Nobel Prize, here comes the glory, here comes, or at least here comes the cure for cancer. Now they're going to patent it, now they're going to market it, now people are not going to have to die from this terminal disease. But lo and behold, the budget stopped. Okay? If you think about from an investor point of view, you wouldn't think that just when something manages to cure cancer, you would have difficulty to find funding for your research project. So, yes, of honoring of Feynman, so that I would tend to the topic of cancer. This information reached to me, and I, like, when I was in academia, I was like, cancer, cure for cancer, like, who am I? I was like, yes, you think you're nobody, and as for this, you're right. Everybody found cure for cancer. They were silenced, murdered, taken away. And Feynman himself, when he sat with the medical department in Caltech, he says, I talked to excellent people that make cures for diseases that you thought were incurable. And I talked to excellent people who make diseases that nobody can cure. This was very likely the end of the 60s when he was giving this lecture. And you look at his lectures, and he was a professor in Caltech. So they were sitting, when you are in academia, you sit to eat. If you are of the staff, of the teaching staff, then you sit to eat with the professor. That's the whole point of it. Okay, you eat together, then you're exposed to this scientific field that you make connections. You're supposed to do that. So you're talking from the lunch that you have with this professor, with that student, with that person, to exchange ideas. So it's coming from the inside knowledge. Also for me, when I was teaching this doctor German, she had a colleague, and the colleague was doing the research. Why she heard me, I said, oh, I have thesis about philosophy of medicine and philosophy of science, with the science at question is the medicines, both holistic and conventional. All of that happened before COVID. And I still, when there was a baby next to, when I was sitting with the neighbors, there was a newborn baby, I still took 2 shots of this poison just because of the baby. I said I can make medical experiments with myself. I did aromatherapy. I do aromatherapy, but this baby, I don't want to take the risk, and so on. Because I do aromatherapy, it was not affecting me like others, but it was affecting me. Okay, my menstrual cycles did begin to change, and then you meet a doctor that you know for 10 years, and they tell you it's not because of the pill, it's not because of the this. Maybe this, maybe that, and I'm like, looking at them, they're looking at me. This is doctor that I recommended to be a favorable doctor, because I know that's doctor for 10 years. She would always make sure that I have correct things, if I had to have iron, if I had anything that I needed, to make sure that I'm okay. But this doctor, that was so painful, because she believed what she said. She couldn't believe of what this thing was doing. She was not psychiatrist. Psychiatrists, they do it, they know it for decades. But she actually believed what she said. And she was very angry. She said, you must take for this thing. I cannot not have you. And we had to release contact, okay? And so also very good people we lost in this pandemic that went through a crisis, because sometimes, there are people like David Icke that knew decades ago what was going on. There were doctors that were in the labs that knew what was going on. But if you're a family doctor, HMO doctor, a nurse in hospital, okay, very likely most of you didn't know. And even for me, researcher, I can say I have good ideas, but I came from politics department. I did not come from medical department. I keep myself humble, and if there's a baby next to me, first thing I take the shot. I don't mess with that. Yes? So I want you to also understand that this is the immensity of what we are dealing with, of how these cults basically affect our sciences. And if you think, oh, it's just theoretical philosophy, theoretical physics, it's engineering, it is medicine, it is law, it is psychology and psychiatry, it is the heart of hearts of what you need to survive, of when you go to medical checks, usual medical checks, of when you need to get married or to buy a house, of when you need to invest your money, of when you need to have public housing, if you live in a country where there's public housing. It's all for these people. You have crisis, okay? If you need, maybe your husband died and you need help from welfare. It was not violent, but they are going to try and take the kids away from you. And so you're not fit to be father. Men suffer from this even more. The women suffer with tremendously. Men suffer even more, because usually they put the child with the woman, not with the man. And so to begin with, they're in bad position as per these things. And so this is how far these cults go. And when you understand that all of these people that tell you that the explanatory force of their theory is you are imagining, okay, it's not philosophy of science, it's not credible explanation. You cannot dismiss information with your imagining. It's unscientific to do so. You can say maybe there were error in the information, maybe there were error in the computation, but there's a limit to how much error there can be in information in the computation, and there's a politics and the finance to that you cannot ignore. I always advocate for to go with the naive approach if you want to understand the science, to go with the naive approach, to think yourself, what is medicine, what is this, what is that, to do thought experiments yourself. Don't wait for academia to do it. I always recommend for you to do it, because when you do it, you have such solid understanding of things that you can't be duped so easily. Okay? Because you understand what is, what isn't. And the information comes to you. Yes? But when you understand and you have to rule out the fact that the person that you are arguing with just doesn't understand scientific orientation, when they're a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a commander in the army, what? You did not read Art of War? If it's good for the Chinese for 500 years, you think it's not good for us? You did not read that besieging cities is the most costly thing that is going to ruin your entire operation from the get-go? And lose everybody's motivation to fight? You did not read that? You do not know that? You did not read that you don't wait 9 months for to save kidnapped people when you have surveillance from even Voltsafe all around, but they can tell you for the point with laser, for the point that they are even underground, I don't know how many meters, where these people are, just so you know how much surveillance we have. And you have for the laser that you can put the laser around them, like in science fiction. Around them, where you can pinpoint this person, that person, you can take the kidnapped person away. Some of this laser technology developed by Israel. 9 months, we don't know where these people are. Maybe at hospitals. Okay? When you understand, then you understand who you're speaking with. It's not that they are dumb. So you understand there's something else going. And sometimes it's there when I was doing a Pfizer shot, when there was baby next to me, you could say I was dumb. Okay, I was duped because I didn't know for sure what the science is. And I said, I'm not going to take a chance on a baby. That was the knowledge that was exposed to me. Okay, it was decision over my body. I did not force anybody to do this. I did not argue with anybody to do this. I did not coerce anybody to do this. I did stupid decision from right, pure motive that affected my body. And fortunately, luckily for me, I was also studying aromatherapy back then, so I could combat this and curate my menstrual cycle, my bloodstream and nervous system. But yes, it's also made very likely more possible to hack into nervous system at that time. Okay. But when you understand what the science is, now you understand what the science is not. When you understand what economy is, you understand what economy is not. And that is where where the C factor. Okay, when we talk about explanatory, first talk about could there be possible C factor. Okay, if we have phenomena A and possible cause, phenomena B that possible cause A, then what would be the C factor that could get us from A to B, other than our theory, which is our explanatory force? That could be many things, and then when you outrule for these many things, you understand that the C factor is corruption. Okay, if you sit in hospital, let's say you're in mental hospital, and they tell you, well, take this shot. You take this shot, or you take this pill, and you take this pill. Let's say you voluntarily hospitalized yourself, and you take this pill, and you say, but I have this and that phenomenon. They say, well, it's not from the pill, it's from the trauma, it's from the ailment, it's from this. Well, the correct scientific approach would be, okay, let's try to reduce for the pill and to take out of the pill. I'm still in hospital, I'm still under a guard. Let's try to take out for this pill, not to take pills, so I can see what my situation is at least a month without the pill. And so what is my situation for before the pill, and what is my situation with the pill, so I can see if this is indeed, like you say, from trauma and I didn't notice, or is from pill. This is a scientific approach, and if you are the patient and you offer this, this is what they have to do. But then for you, they will tell you, I cannot hospitalize you if you don't get these medications. Without you taking medications, I cannot offer you all the yoga classes you receive here, the place to rest outside of the street. I cannot offer you any of that. I cannot offer you this. Now you understand that if it's compulsory to take something that you feel bad with, if it's compulsory to take something, well, you understand it's not medicine. And I've talked to chemists who cut the Seroquel pill in half, where they will not long release, and they say, I'm chemist. And I said, why did you do that? Because I couldn't with the side effects. What did the doctors do? They say, oh, let's get her back on the pill. She's a functioning person, and set her out. This is a revolving door, because the body cannot with these toxins. And I met a person who I believe was satanic ritual abuse by doctor. And when I asked, what about for the antipsychotics, for they help you to get back to your body? They said for a little bit, and then I go up again. Why doesn't anybody speak with them and believe them for what they've been through? Then they could go back to the body. This is open dialogue, but they have to have housing first, independent of ability to work. It's not because they're lazy. It's because they're recovering, they're returning for their existence, need to exist first before they can do something with their lives. And when it's practiced in Finland, they found cure for psychosis. Just those tough cases. With no pills. Very simple. House the person, give them root chakra place to be. It is safe, without expiration of time, without dependence, if they are able to work, not able to work, addicted, not addicted. And when they speak, believe them for what they speak about. They begin to heal. And if they had voices, these voices will be supportive rather than disturbing. Even people that have agree with schizophrenia say, I have schizophrenia. And I heard such people. They were suddenly at a conference of mathematics or something that they liked, and there were nice people around them. They say, oh, I noticed that the voices begin to be nice when I'm in a nice environment. Good morning. That's the situation. But if you're in academia and you have to defend such a thesis, it's very difficult. Open dialogue was founded in Netherlands. We hear it, oh, this is a Finnish thing. It's not a Finnish thing. It's originated in Netherlands. But Netherlands has housing problems. Later we had a Basser van der Kolk. Okay, it was tending to trauma. I don't know how many people. And for what if they had one option, was to say, well, housing first, open dialogue, believe what they say, they start to heal. And they start to do what they like when they are ready for it, and you support them with that. Then they start taking action on the things that they believe in. Now they feel empowered. Now they feel that their sense of meaning purpose, they change the reality that created the trauma. Let's say reality of war. Yes? This was one option, but he would have to defend himself with drug cartels, human trafficking cartels, weapon dealing cartels, real estate cartels, and all of them have representatives at academia through the secret societies and the funding, Okay? You know what banking is. Listen to Ronald Bernard. And that's true, okay? And so, but the other option is to encourage rape. Supported by everybody, creates a business for everybody. He said, support rape. To cure war trauma. Okay? But the only way to cure war trauma is to change for the circumstances that created the war. It's the only way for to cure. This is why after 7th October I began to speak. I didn't even understand what was going on with me. This is how you cure war trauma. And not, according to Bassa van der Kolk, I was supposed to go on a rape rave. I don't know. According to Bassa van der Kolk, as Me Too veteran, I was supposed to begin to rape men and this and that and take the energy out of the body and so on. No, it's not. It doesn't help my sexuality. It doesn't help their sexuality. For to change what the circumstances that created the trauma. On a personal psychology, people are taught just that. They say, oh, let's try to change so that it won't happen to you again. Yes, you need to change society. You need to have housing, independent of ability to work. Otherwise, you would not be competent at work. You would get fired. You would make trouble at work. And sometimes not the correct trouble. Okay, it's good to make the correct trouble. I have Uranus in the 10th house. I bring in the tower everywhere I go. No workplace that hired me remained the same after me, and it was always for the best. It was difficult change, but it was always for the best. Because I remove corruption. I'm bringing the tower. And then the business can sustain, but the business can survive. But this is, if you put me at work, this is what will be. My body cannot. It has to take the energy in this way, so things are changed. Bring in the tower. Even in astrology, I thought just doing astrology would be curating for this. No. When they think to standardize astrology, which essentially is Uranus, which essentially is outside of the standards, it brings in my Uranus. Because they try to control for the revolution. Uranus, where you try to control Uranus, it backfires. It backfires so much. You think about the Jiaoshu, you think about North Korea, okay? North Korea was isolated for so long, then it managed to go and be a part of the BRICS. Suddenly it is desired. This is no problem. Now, Mr. Kim Jong-un, supreme leader of North Korea, please send so-and-so troops for to fight against, I think it's Ukraine, in Europe. There you have hundreds, thousands of people. And if you would look, there's somebody on YouTube that hacked into the North Korea satellite, you would look at the movies. As Israeli, I must say, they remind me a bit of early Israeli movies. We had one television channel, and that was the public, and it reminds a bit of that. And so you would see what they're exposed to all day. Then they go to Europe. To Europe, mind you. Ukraine. Okay? Different architecture, different food, different everything. North Korea will not be the same after that. And not only that, Putin begins to assassinate certain of the people of Kim Jong-un. So, nature tends to correct for itself when you have these changes. And this happening around the Urano-Algol. Mars Urano-Algol, North Korea, is in Europe. So all the people that say, oh, good, leader North Korea is so good, but Israel is doing genocide, is doing this, is doing that. And now they have a chance to see what North Korea is. North Korea is now in Europe. Okay? But also what all these people say, idealize certain countries. Okay? Oh, Israel is so good, it's so this, it's so this, it's so that. Israel was the lab of Pfizer during COVID. Israelis get free medical care, and I understand why the ears they give the ears flying, okay? Why they give the flying ears, because like they can't hear about it, they can't this, they can't. It really sounds bad. It sounds like yes, you get life-saving things. First of all, for things you need to really life-saving, you need to travel to the United States, still today, even from Israel. But it was the Pfizer lab. And so we see, yes, we get supposedly free medical care. It's not free, it's used to enslave people. It's just that in the United States, it's used to enslave people, but we pay for it. Yes, at least the price is so much that you can't afford it. Here you go to a medical checkup. You go to get your blood test. You go to get this, you go to get that. Then they start messing, okay? People at their 70s, they start messing with their head. I was working for a call center to have appointments on holistic medicine for elderly people. And I thought this is lovely. I believe in that. I like reflexology and this is good. And then I heard that the woman that works at the HMO, the secretary, she would not get these people in. And I called her angry. Why do you keep people from their rights? They deserve this, they deserve to say, Shirley, hold your Heineken, okay? What happens? They sit with a doctor, this not doctor, this business person. He forces these people to sign something of what they don't know. He'd close the door until they don't sign a series of what they give their rights away. Okay, for they're gonna pay for this. They're not necessarily gonna come. They don't understand what they're signing. They don't understand what it's doing, and they force them with such aggression that they don't. It's elderly people. Why do we need to do this to elderly people? Some of them don't even speak Hebrew that well. And I was like, oh my God. Corruption? Where did corruption, like who would thought that something like, I don't know, having, extra insurance for to have some reflexology, for to have some warm stone massage, and so good things. Who would have thought that it would come into this state? It was the biggest HMO in Israel, Klalit. Whistleblow with the name. They have the calls recorded. This was from a decade ago. All the calls recorded. And if not find the calls, then we understand that they have problem with erasing evidence. This is already legal offense of interfering with evidence. So I did not think that I would run into such problem with something that they managed to mess up. It's kind of like you managed to mess up pizza. But they did manage to mess up pizza because pizzas are the businesses that are most notorious for being a cover-up businesses for drug cartels and mafia families. They managed to mess up pizza. So yes, this is the video for today, and I think I bothered my cat. My cats sleep way too much, and they managed to be so resilient that they're waking up now. And I'll send you with this. So you see, now we tend to sexual energy, remove shame, we get actual information as well, because it's a life energy, and it's also mental energy, psychological energy, emotional energy, physical energy, and spiritual energy. So yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.